Hello and welcome to a new episode of my Flosstube. I am Jacob de Graaf of Modern Folk Embroidery, and today I will be talking about favorite books of mine. And I thought instead of just literature or reading books like I did last year, I will show you some of my favorite stitchy books, and in particular stitchy books relating to Dutch stitching. So as you can see, I've got a nice stack here. This is by far not my complete collection. There is a small part here and it goes behind the Christmas tree. There's lots more books on embroidery and stitching that are just used for work stuff. But yeah, these are some of the books that I really like for various reasons. So I'm gonna start with a couple of nice oldies. They are a series of craft tutorials by Maria van Hemert. She was a lady I only recently found out. She was actually from Rotterdam, and in the Rotterdam Museum has some work of her as well, which is quite interesting. But she did sort of around World War II, around that period in the 1930s, 1940s and 1950s, she did an amazing amount of work really developing our knowledge of samplers and sort of drawing out patterns and things. And even though her research is dated and slightly outdated in parts, it is something that we as modern researchers can build on and find out more about. So it is really good what she did. But I love her little books. This is a little book on how to do hems and things like that. Has beautiful drawings that were all made at the time. It's absolutely fantastic. Like different types of pulled work, white work. There is one which is tapisserie work, which is quite fantastic. What have we got here? Darning and marking cloths, so basically samplers. Freehand embroidery, and Freehand Embroidery Part 2. They're really fantastic books. I really love these. They're really inspiring, and the amazing thing is that these techniques don't change. So they are so well explained in these books. So yeah, definitely. If you can get your hands on, not per se on these, but there will be English versions of these types of books, I'm sure of it. But it is really good to keep an eye out for antique craft books. They're just fantastic. This one is by Yvette Stanton, who very recently released this absolutely beautiful book called Frisian Whitework. Now, Yvette Stanton does classes as well, and she's got a lovely Instagram account. I recommend checking her out. I'll put links down below here as well. But this book is really good. She talks about Frisian whitework, which a lot of people, when they see it, they say like, oh yeah, that's hardanger, isn't it? And it's like, no, it's Frisian, it's different. It's worked a lot of the times over multiples of 3 instead of 2 or 4. But it has a whole different set of stitches. It's a little bit more varied actually than hardanger is. And it's possibly, Yvette writes in this book as well, it predates it a little bit. So it is possible because of the travel routes and the trade routes that the ships had, that they brought, the Frisians might have brought some of the whitework to Norway. But of course that's like all speculation. On my part, I don't know how things ended up where. But it's a beautiful book, really lovely photographs and very clear instructions. Now, this book really is worth buying purely for the instructions of the whitework. It is so well laid out for left hand and right hand users. It is really well done. So yeah, Yvette Stanton, thumbs up that one. Then we have this one here. I've got 2 copies actually. This one here is a fun book. It's a little bit unclear how the layout is, but it is quite interesting for me as it is on samplers from Zeeland, which is quite a different subject to discover. But Zeeland is the province bordering South Holland, where I live. So it's down south at the seaside. And it's It's a really lovely book. It's fascinating to sort of read about the different samplers and the different types of samplers that they were making there. I have some samplers in my own personal collection from the province, so that's really nice. And it's beautifully illustrated. I am not a fan of the graphic layout, and I think that unfortunately the red and white text is not very sort of easy on the eye, but still, it is a really fascinating book. If you can get your hands on that one, definitely recommend it. Albarta Meulenbelt-Nieuwburg book, Embroidery Motifs, is a classic. Again, it is a little bit outdated like the other book that I talked about earlier. Some of the research is not quite accurate. There are some things that have been proven to be slightly different, but still, it is for what it is a really excellent book. It's very good to start researching stuff from, and it has an enormous amount of little sampler motifs from samplers from all over the country and from different centuries. So definitely worth looking into this book. Then I have this book here, which is by Gieneke Visser. Gieneke Visser has written several really good books, by the way, beautifully illustrated. I have actually purchased a sampler from Gieneke directly as well. But she wrote this one a couple of years ago, and it's called Oefenstof, which is unfortunately not available, as far as I know, in English. But it has a French translation as well, and it's in French and Dutch. And it talks about samples from 1600 through to 1920. And it is a really beautifully illustrated volume as well, as you can see here. And what I really like about this volume as well is the cover. It's a matte cover, but it has a neckline and the stitching here, and it's sort of embossed on it. So it's very pretty. It's a really lovely book. This one is a good one. Black Samplers from the Oldambt. Again, this book is in Dutch. I do believe it has translations of some of the main texts in English, if I'm not mistaken. No, this is German. Is it just German? Might just be German, actually. No, there is English as well. Yeah, so it does have English texts as well. The main texts are in Dutch, but there are sort of summaries in English which sort of touch upon the most important things. So that's really good about this book. It's beautifully illustrated as well, and it talks about the lovely Groningen samplers. And of course they are recognizable by that lovely crowned G there. Very famous for the Groningen samplers. But it's a great title, this one, so definitely recommend it. Then the last book that I want to share today is this one. It's by Gieneke Arnoli and I forgot the other author. Rosalie Sloof. And it's a really good title, this one. Gieneke and Rosalie did a lot of research into Frisian samplers from the north of the Netherlands, and it's really good. Sadly, again, it is in Dutch. But I do want to share it with you because even if you don't read Dutch, it is worth just getting for the absolute stunning... there's a sampler in there as well. So professional. Things are falling out of this thing. It's beautifully photographed. It's stunning. Just look at that. All these gorgeous, gorgeous samplers. And it is such a helpful book as well because it is, to my knowledge, the first book on Frisian samplers that goes in depth this far, identifying patterns, identifying locations, identifying stitches and everything, and identifying motifs, and really looking beyond just the standard, like this is a nice picture. So it's a really fantastic, very well researched book, and I think it is really interesting for me as well as the stuff that they have built up on, because there was hardly anything to start with, so they really started with this book. And it is an amazing jumping off point for doing even more research now as well. I have already thanks to this book, discovered a few small things, not super exciting, but I've discovered some sort of style of stitching in some villages that turn out to be very limited to one village. And the samples that I've seen that resemble it all turn out to be from that same area. So that's kind of exciting when stuff like that happens. But that's thanks to authors who are amazing, who produce such wonderful volumes. So yeah, that's the books that I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed this a little bit. We are really nearing Christmas. There's just a few more videos coming up, and then it's the end of this countdown. I hope you enjoyed my little talk about books today, and I will be back very soon again with another video. For now, have a wonderful day, happy stitching, and see you soon. Bye bye.